before pretty much anybody really thought very much about staying away from other people as a result of social distancing, it was my thing to pretty much stay away from most people who are around me, because for the most part, I didn't feel the need to share space with people I was in line with at the food joint, or paying for something, or grocery shopping, or whatever it happened to be. I would much rather be distant from you than have you be close to me or be close to you. And I've always made it my habit to stay away from people. I mention this because part of the reason for my doing that, believe it or not, is politeness. It is that I want for you to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do without the hindrance of concerning yourself about me. And the result is I've learned to defer my wants to some degree. So I go to the grocery store and I know I want to go down aisle 3. I'm only going to go down aisle 3 if I feel like I can do that and not mess with anybody else in the process. And when I'm in aisle 3, if I see that somebody else wants to get there and I know that I'm going to be spending a lot of time there, I move out of aisle 3 and come back later. That's the way I do business. This to me is part of, quote, polite society, of being polite to others, as is driving in reasonable ways and not crowding people's bumpers and so many other things that you can talk about, allowing other people to go ahead of you when you know that they've got one item and you've got 15 in the supermarket line. Just various things that you're gonna deal with. But that's what I kind of want to talk about today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. By the way, I'm your host. I'm Kurt. And today is Sunday, the 27th of June of 2021. Thank you for being here, whether on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, or wherever you happen to be joining me from. And again, so what I wanted to talk about, the subject was polite society. And I have a little bit of notes that I'm going to read, as I tend to do. In order to have polite society, you must have, at least to some degree, 2 definitions in place. One is a meaning of society itself, who's involved in that particular group, and the second is what polite means. If you don't have both, you're very unlikely to create what amounts to a polite society. It's just not going to happen, right? And I would wager that people have different definitions on the second one, by the way, but I think that we can come to some pretty solid conclusions about what it means nonetheless. Arguing that what's desirable isn't a polite society is in direct contradiction to what I would imagine the vast majority of societal denizens would say. Put another way, I think most people would say, yeah, I really want a polite society. Here's where it gets kind of difficult. To begin with, I'm pretty sure that no 2 people would completely agree on the idea of polite society. Secondly, I think that there are a bunch of people who think that other people should defer to them and they should never have to make any concession for anybody else in the society at large. I just think that's how that works. And by the way, I think that that's particularly true when people are younger. So when they're very young, they tend to be in this place where they'll give way to other people because they realize they're sort of vulnerable in that regard. And my tendency with those people is actually to give way to them, to show them I recognize that you're giving way to me, and for the most part it matters more to you than it does to me, and I'm going to let you do what you want to do. For older folks, some of them tend to be just clueless and tend to run around doing whatever it is that they do, and that's pretty much the end of that. In the middle are a couple of sets of people who are not really old, but are sort of more middle-aged. By the way, excuse my son if you hear him in the background, he's yodeling. That's what kids do. That's the sort of thing they do. Anyway, and then there are those who are younger and feel like they're on the top of their game and they don't see why they should concede anything to anyone, which of course is a really bad perspective on life. Some young people are quite clueless and they just do things. So I had a kid basically run smack into my arm, which barely bent because I didn't know that he was there, right? Ran smack into my arm and then, oh, excuse me, sort of thing. And I'm like, you saw that I was here, you ran into my arm, and you want me to excuse you for that. I hate to say this, but I'm more worried about did I hurt you than should I excuse you. I don't want you to get hurt. That's one of the reasons I see a need for a sort of a polite society, right? Is I'm sitting here thinking to myself, one of the things I want is for somebody to not kill me in the process of crossing the street. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I long since came to the conclusion that it made more sense for me to wait for the cars to go in front of me than to pass in front or cross in front of cars. I think that you can do some things to make it to where, even when you don't have a polite society, you can extend the potential for life and improve the quality of life by making it so that you just don't put people in bad situations. And what that means is, if I can, I always try and get out of the way when I'm in a car as quickly as I can when it comes to people walking, so that they can walk without worrying about walking in front of me, but at the same time so that they can walk without worrying about whether or not I'm going to present some sort of problem for them, me stopping or whatever either. Same thing applies when I'm walking. I try and make it so that I get out of people's way, and that includes when I'm walking and it's people against people as opposed to people against cars or whatever. Right? So I think that there are some things that a person can do, whether or not the society around them decides to be polite, that generally make it so that you will live a happier life if you just assume that I'm better off to kind of defer, to let other people have what they want. Look, here's the thing. I've said this a number of times to people. You want to drive 85 miles an hour in a 70 or a 60 or a 50 or even a 40? Okay, fine. Just know this. Unless you're going a pretty large distance, a pretty large number of miles, kilometers, whatever you happen to measure in, unless you're doing that, guess what? It's not going to get you there that much faster, to drive that much faster, to drive at that higher rate of speed. You may think it is, but you're mistaken. Do the math. Sit down and do the math. I'm going 3 miles, the speed limit on most of the roadway I'm on. Let's for the sake of argument, I'm going 4 miles. The speed limit on the stretch road I'm going is 40 miles an hour. Well, if I go 40 miles an hour, it's going to take me a tenth of an hour to get there. If I go 60 miles an hour, that 4 miles is going to be maybe a couple minutes faster, but it's not going to be substantially faster. You're just not going to gain a lot. So a lot of politeness has to do with the recognition, to me, that I don't get anything out of being rude or ignorant or arrogant or pushy. I don't get anything out of that. In fact, what I get is a bad reputation to some degree, even with people who are my own age. People decide that I'm disrespecting them, that I'm being a punk or whatever particular thing they happen to be talking about. Yeah, people are going to say that about you anyway, but why on earth would you make it so that those people have a reason to do so? If I see you coming and we're going in the same place, I'm going to move out of your way. If you move into my way, prepare for me to stand my ground and basically tell you through my actions, no, I'm not moving. That's not me being impolite. That's the fact that you were being clueless and were not being polite yourself. Now, sometimes I'll just move. Sometimes I'll just get out of the way. And generally speaking, if the two of us are going down the same stretch of say, aisle in a supermarket, I will move first. When you move to hit me head on after I just moved, that's a problem to me. That's a problem. But from a perspective of, am I going to be polite in the first place? Heck yeah. And I'll be honest, in the end, if you don't move, we're either going to meet cart to cart or person to person, or I'm probably going to move, or you will have already done so by the time you come within any distance of me. But the point is this: politeness requires that we accept who's in society and that we accept the definition for politeness. And politeness is simply deferring to and considering your fellow human beings. That's really all it is. Please, for the love of all that's good, please work to be polite and realize the benefit not just for others, but for you. Because if you're polite, then hopefully you can expect the same sort of thing out of other people. All right, I need to go ahead and wrap up now. I'm going to do exactly that. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Sunday, the 27th of June of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Monday, the 28th of June of 2021. Thank you for everybody who's been here on Rumble, on YouTube, on the podcast, or for that matter, anywhere else that you happen to pick me up. Subject for today has been polite society, and tomorrow we're going to talk on an interesting subject. It's my opinion. And I'm going to talk on a little more than my opinion, but that's how I chose to title a piece for a variety of reasons. Hope you're doing well today. Hope things are going well for you on this beginning of the Christian week. Again, if you're working on the weekend, I thank you. I very much appreciate the fact that you're doing that. I hope whether you're working or not, you're doing well and that everything is going well for you. I hope to see you also again on tomorrow's edition of the Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Sunday, the 27th of June of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.